So it's really bare minimum then.
Talk whack to me, talk whack to me,
Yeah.
talk whack to me, talk whack to me.
Yo, what's up, everybody? So you know we gotta talk about Rory and Mal. The latest podcast dropped, and what is noticeable is there has been no reply to Joe Budden after Joe Budden called Rory's bluff, apparently, and riveted when Rory said he could get froggy with some information that he has about Joe. Before we continue on, please, if you haven't already, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I'm dropping new videos on the channel. But with that being said, let's get to the story. Man, oh man, so many people rooted for Rory and Mal. So many people rooted for Rory and Mal, including myself. And I am a Joe Budden fan, possibly a Joe Budden stan, but I became such a huge fan of the podcast for those three brothers, plus Park. So for those four brothers, and the dynamic and the chemistry that they all had, and the good conversation, how comfortable they were. Even when Rory and Mal split up from Joe Budden, although I did not agree with their opinion or their assessment of what happened, I still wanted the best for them, and I was still so happy when I saw that they were having pretty high numbers at the beginning of their podcast run. But what became apparent is that Joe Budden was right about them. They don't express nothing. I remember Joe Budden on his podcast always saying, say something, do something. I'm always the one who has to be vulnerable here. And Rory and Mal not really being too vulnerable. Rory a little bit sometimes, Mal not at all. And what we also learned from them having their own show, New Rory and Mal, is that they really don't want to talk about none of this stuff. They don't like to get into the drama. They don't like to, capitalize off of momentum. They have this cloth talk, the cloth of cloth. How they're the cloth brothers. I know they're the cloth brothers, the cloth boys. I know Joe Budden calls them the bare minimum boys. I call them the cloth boys because they always try. It's like they go bump some Jay-Z to get their talking points, man. They go bump some of Jay's best albums to get their talking points. And when Jay's doing that slick talk over a beat, for a song that's 3 to 5 minutes, we love that. But when you're on a podcast for hours and we have all this information and we have all these options to go to listen to people's take on things, we want to hear you get a little saucy, a little funny. I think Rory and Mal, they think that stuff is beneath them. They're too great for that. The holier than thou approach, which is kind of like Joe, but at least Joe will give it up. Rory and Mal don't do anything like that, and because of that, they've let down so many people who have rooted for them. People who have been calling out Joe Budden, talking about he grimy and this and that and that. And this have had to admit that Rory and Mal dropped the ball, man. And it's really sad because I think that they are really two great guys. Even though I think there was a lot of gaslighting on Rory's end on the last pod where Rory was trying to make it seem like Joe was just talking about him and Mal for no reason, even though Mal was continuing on with the thief and cat burglar talk, you know what I'm saying? But even with all that, I still think that Rory and Mal are two great guys, and I think there's a personality there. They just gotta focus it, and maybe that means bringing another person, a lively personality on the podcast that can get them out of that, get them out of their comfort zone and have them talk about some stuff and be open to have opinions and discussions. And maybe you do it in a different format and way, but don't let momentum and the hot thing go because you're trying to hold on to these, supposed morals. You're on a podcast, you talk for a living, and you do talk about things. So I don't know. I just know what I do know, because I know a little something, is that the podcast is boring, and they had a opportunity here to spark some interest and just have fun. It's the weekend. People finna be home and have some fun things to listen to and talk about while people off work. And they chose to go the dull route and just completely stop talking about Joe. Rory did not make good on his threat. Now, that's not to say that he can't. And who knows? Maybe this podcast was already in the bag before they heard what Joe said, and they just put this out. And the next time they come out, Rory's gonna give us some bars, and we all gonna have to eat our words. And Rory was right. Or Rory and Mal are tough and they are able to go against Joe. But as it currently stands, Joe is right, man. Bare minimum. They not ready for this. You have to give an opinion. You have to say something. And it's like they just want to be the dull podcast. So be the dull podcast. I don't know what's going to happen once their deal that they signed is done. If they're going to get another deal. If they do, they're most likely not going to get the same amount of money. I wouldn't be surprised if Rory and Mal decided they want to stop the pod. I mean, there's really nothing interesting happening on there anyway, and they have other things that they do. They might keep it because it's easy to just sit and talk, but who really wants to deal with that? These guys who are too cool for school, they're too high and mighty. Look how great they are that they don't stoop to these levels. It's like whatever, dude. You just talk. You give an opinion on public stuff. You're not breaking news. Like, you're not bringing people on the platform that have problems and you're exploiting them for views and making fun of them. You're commenting on the culture and what's happening, current events. Like, who do you think you guys are? You two guys sitting down recording a podcast, and you try to come in with this high and mighty attitude like this is some grandiose thing. Like, chill out, dude. Get over yourselves. I really do believe I need to. It's okay to talk about the salacious stuff. It's already out there. Talk about it. Give your opinion. Maybe speak as to why people should look at things in a different, point of view. Joe knows how to go. Joe, his podcast was a little boring for a minute too. He went and got Queens Flip, and I love the pod now. So I just irritated with Rory and Mal, like a lot of people are. And I hope that Rory and Mal come out next pod episode and they was like, yo, you know what? We already had that one in the books, but now we about to get into that dirt. And Rory tells us what's in the bookstore.
Talk whack to me. Talk whack to me. Yeah. Talk whack to me. Talk whack to me.